Have you ever stopped to wonder if danger might be hiding in the shadows of your everyday life? Quiet threats that seem harmless now but could turn deadly as the years pile on. Picture yourself at 70 or beyond, still savoring your morning coffee, your walks through the park, or the laughter of a family gathering. These routines feel safe, familiar, like a well-worn path. But what if that path is lined with unseen risks, waiting to ambush you when your guard is down? As we age, our bodies, once resilient and forgiving, become fragile in ways we don't always notice. Subtle changes creep in, turning ordinary habits into potential hazards. Many of us assume sudden death is a rare, unpredictable twist of fate, a bolt from the blue. But the truth is far more sobering. There are specific triggers, silent and insidious, that grow more dangerous after 70, threatening to steal away our golden years without a whisper of warning. The worst part, these risks often slip by unnoticed, ignored, until they've tightened their grip. In this journey together, we're going to peel back the curtain on 5 sudden death triggers that can strike after 70, 5 silent killers that don't announce their arrival with fanfare. These aren't vague, abstract worries. They're concrete dangers rooted in the body's quiet decline, from unnoticed heart conditions to habits so routine you'd never suspect they could harm you. Each one carries the power to unravel a life if left unchecked. But here's the light in the darkness. Knowledge is your shield. Once you see these threats for what they are, you can fight back, taking simple, practical steps to protect yourself and rewrite your story. Stick with me to the end, because understanding these 5 triggers could be the key to thriving well into your later years or dodging a preventable crisis that catches too many off guard. By the time we're through, you'll know exactly what to watch for, and more importantly, how to safeguard your health against these lurking dangers. Ready? Let's step into the unknown together. Number 1. Silent heart attacks. Imagine a heart attack so stealthy it slips past you like a shadow in the night. No dramatic chest-clutching collapse, no Hollywood warning signs. Just a whisper of trouble you might mistake for something else. After 70, silent heart attacks become one of the most treacherous risks we face, precisely because they don't scream for attention. Unlike the sharp, searing pain most associate with a heart attack, these silent invaders arrive cloaked in subtlety, disguised as indigestion, a wave of fatigue, or a faint ache you shrug off as nothing. The danger lies in their deception. Because the symptoms feel so mild, countless people never seek help, letting the damage fester unnoticed until it's too late to turn back. Consider Richard, a 74-year-old with a twinkle in his eye and a spring in his step. He's the kind of man who greets each day with purpose, lacing up his sneakers for a brisk morning walk along the tree-lined streets of his neighborhood, or swinging a golf club with friends under the warm afternoon sun. A few months ago, though, something felt off. After his usual stroll, he sank into his armchair, unusually winded. A dull discomfort nagged at his upper back, and a heaviness settled over him like a fog. Just a bad night's sleep, he told himself, sipping his tea and brushing it aside. What Richard didn't know, what he couldn't have guessed, was that his heart had just endured a silent attack. There was no crushing chest pain, no moment of panic to jolt him into action. Instead, the blockage in his arteries had quietly starved his heart of oxygen, leaving behind invisible scars. Weeks later, those scars weakened his heart enough to push him perilously close to sudden cardiac arrest, a fate he never saw coming. Silent heart attacks happen when blood flow to the heart is choked off, but the body doesn't sound the alarm in the way we expect. Instead of a stabbing pain, you might feel a vague ache in your jaw, a tightness in your neck, or a strange pressure in your upper stomach. Dizziness might sweep over you, or a sudden exhaustion might pin you to your seat. Some chalk it up to heartburn, a pulled muscle, or a fleeting bout of nerves. But every minute that passes without oxygen, your heart muscle suffers, quietly building a foundation for disaster. The real terror strikes later. If a second, more obvious heart attack hits, a heart already compromised by silent damage is far less likely to pull through. For many, the truth only surfaces during a routine doctor's visit, or, tragically, after they collapse without warning. Awareness is your first line of defense. If you ever feel unexplained tiredness, shortness of breath, or discomfort in your upper body that lingers longer than it should, don't dismiss it as just aging. A quick electrocardiogram, EKG, or blood test can unmask silent damage before it escalates. Picture Richard pausing that day, listening to his body instead of pushing past it, calling his doctor, getting checked. That small act could have rewritten his story. Prevention starts with trusting your instincts and acting when something feels off, even if it's subtle. It's not about living in fear, it's about holding on to the life you love. Number 2. Postural hypotension and falls. Now let's shift to a danger that sounds mundane but carries a deadly edge. A sudden drop in blood pressure when you stand up. It's called postural hypotension, and after 70, it's far more than a fleeting dizzy spell. For younger folks, that brief wooziness might be a minor hiccup, something to laugh off as you steady yourself. But for seniors, it's a ticking time bomb, a leading cause of falls that can shatter lives in an instant. A stumble might mean a fractured hip, a cracked skull, or a cascade of complications that spiral into a fight for survival. What makes this so chilling is how easily it's overlooked. Most people don't see it as a threat until they're sprawled on the floor, staring up in shock. Take George, a 78-year-old with a quiet strength and a love for life's simple pleasures. Every morning, he shuffles into the local diner, his sanctuary of warm coffee and friendly chatter. The waitresses know his order by heart: black coffee, 2 sugars, and he trades stories with the regulars, his laughter filling the air. One afternoon, after lingering over his cup, he rose from his chair a little too quickly. The room tilted, a kaleidoscope of spinning lights, and he reached for the table to steady himself. But his hand missed its mark, and in a heartbeat, he was on the floor, pain shooting through his hip. A fracture, the doctor said later, a clean break that should have healed with time. But recovery wasn't so simple. Infections crept in, his strength faded, and what began as a dizzy moment stretched into weeks of hospital beds and whispered fears. For George, that fall wasn't just a fall. It was the unraveling of the independence he'd fought to keep. Why does postural hypotension turn so perilous with age? As the years wear on, our bodies slow down. The heart doesn't snap to attention as quickly when we shift from sitting to standing, and blood pressure struggles to catch up. Dehydration, common among seniors, thickens the blood, making it harder to circulate. Medications for blood pressure or heart conditions can tip the scales further, and underlying issues like diabetes or arthritis only deepen the risk. George felt fine seated at his table, sipping his coffee, but the moment he stood, his body betrayed him. The dizziness hit without warning, and the fall that followed set off a chain reaction. Immobility, blood clots, infections, a downward spiral too many never climb out of. The good news, you can fight back with small, deliberate choices. Stand up slowly, giving your body time to adjust. Sip water throughout the day to keep your blood flowing smoothly. Check your medications. Some might need tweaking if they're dropping your pressure too low. George could have paused that day, gripping the table a moment longer, or mentioned those dizzy spells to his doctor weeks earlier. Awareness turns a hidden threat into a manageable one. If you've ever felt the room sway when you stand, don't brush it off, listen to it. That simple act could keep you on your feet, savoring the life you've built. Number 3, hidden blood clots. Deep vein thrombosis. What if the quiet moments of your day, those hours spent lost in a book, curled up with a favorite show, or dozing in your favorite chair, were secretly brewing a threat? Deep vein thrombosis, DVT, a condition where blood clots form in the legs, is a silent killer that thrives in stillness. Most people picture blood clots as dramatic emergencies tied to surgery or long flights, but the truth is far more unsettling. They can develop unnoticed, even in those who don't think of themselves as sedentary. When these clots break free and race to the lungs, they trigger a pulmonary embolism, a sudden, suffocating blockade that can steal your breath and your life in seconds. After 70, this hidden danger looms larger, striking when you least expect it. Meet Harold, a 76-year-old with a gentle soul and a love for life's quiet rhythms. His porch is his haven, where he spends afternoons with a novel in hand, the breeze rustling the pages as birds chirp overhead. He's not one to sit idle. He runs errands, tends to his small garden, and takes short walks to the corner store. But one lazy Sunday, after hours in his recliner watching a baseball game, he noticed his calf felt odd. It was slightly swollen, a little puffy around the edges, but there was no real pain, just a nagging sensation he dismissed as stiffness from sitting too long. Days later, a shortness of breath crept in, subtle enough that he blamed it on a cold. Then one evening, as he stood to fetch a glass of water, the world went black. He collapsed, a clot from his leg now lodged in his lungs, cutting off his oxygen in an instant. Harold never had a chance to connect the dots. DVT is terrifying because it's so easy to miss. Long stretches of sitting, whether binge-watching TV, driving to visit family, or even sleeping in one position, slow the blood in your legs, letting clots take root. The signs are maddeningly vague. A touch of swelling, a faint tenderness, a cramp you'd attribute to a long day. For Harold, that puffy calf didn't feel urgent. It didn't scream emergency, but beneath the surface, the clot grew, biding its time until it broke loose. Older adults face higher odds because circulation naturally weakens with age, and conditions like diabetes, heart disease, or high blood pressure stack the deck further. Medications can play a role too. Some for cholesterol or blood pressure tweak how blood clots. And dehydration, a silent thief among seniors, thickens the blood into a perfect breeding ground. You don't have to live in fear, just in motion. Stand up every hour, even if it's just to stretch your legs or flex your feet. Sip water regularly, letting it flow through you like a lifeline. Compression socks can nudge your circulation along, and if you spot persistent swelling, redness, or warmth in your leg, don't wait. See a doctor. Harold might have saved himself with a quick checkup that Sunday, turning a quiet threat into a footnote instead of a final chapter. It's not about upending your life, it's about keeping it yours. Number 4. Undetected infections leading to sepsis. Sometimes, the deadliest risks don't come with a roar. They creep in on tiptoe, masquerading as something small until they've woven a web too tight to escape. Sepsis, the body's extreme response to infection, is one such deceiver, and after 70, it's a peril too many overlook. What starts as a minor irritation, a urinary tract infection, a cough, a nick on the skin, can spiral into a full-body crisis, igniting inflammation that ravages organs and snuffs out life with ruthless speed. The symptoms often mimic everyday aches, lulling seniors into a false sense of security until the clock runs out. It's not the dramatic collapse of a stroke or heart attack that makes sepsis so lethal. It's the quiet escalation that catches you off guard. Picture Walter, an 81-year-old with a stubborn streak and a pride in his independence. He's the sort who rarely visits the doctor, preferring to tough out colds and minor ailments with a glass of water and a good night's sleep. One humid afternoon, he noticed a slight burning when he used the bathroom. A nuisance, nothing more. "Just getting old," he muttered, pouring himself another cup of tea. But over the next few days, a fog settled over him. He felt tired, more than usual, and his thoughts grew muddy, slipping through his fingers like sand. A chill gripped him despite the warm air, and his family found him shivering under a blanket, brushing off their concern. By the time they dragged him to the hospital, his infection had invaded his bloodstream. Within hours, his kidneys faltered, his breathing grew ragged, and despite the doctor's frantic efforts, Walter slipped away, a victim of a battle he never knew he was fighting. Sepsis thrives on the aging immune system's weakened defenses. Common infections, UTIs, pneumonia, a cut that won't heal, turn deadly when bacteria spill into the blood, triggering chaos. Early signs are sly: a low-grade fever, a touch of confusion, a fatigue that weighs you down. Walter thought he was just under the weather, not realizing his body was sounding an alarm. Once sepsis takes hold, every hour without treatment is a gamble. Blood pressure plummets, organs fail, and survival odds shrink. For seniors, it can move so fast that help arrives too late. The tragedy is, it often starts with something treatable, a simple infection that caught early could have been a blip instead of a breaking point. Don't let it sneak up on you. Take every infection seriously, no matter how small. a fever that won't quit, chills that rattle your bones, or a sudden mental haze, don't write them off. If a UTI or cough lingers or a wound festers, get it checked. And if rapid breathing, extreme weakness, or a drop in blood pressure hits, head to a hospital without delay. Walter's story could have ended differently with a phone call to his doctor that first day, a quick antibiotic to halt the spread. It's about vigilance, giving yourself the chance to keep writing your own ending. Number 5. Medication mismanagement. Here's a danger that doesn't lurk in dark alleys or strike like lightning. It's right there on your kitchen counter, in your medicine cabinet, in the pills you take every day. Medication mismanagement might sound like a small slip, a missed dose, a double scoop, a pill paired with the wrong partner. But after 70, these mistakes can ignite a chain reaction of cardiac chaos, strokes, or fatal bleeding. As we age, our bodies handle drugs differently, amplifying their power and their peril. What's scarier still, many seniors don't realize they're teetering on the edge until a tiny error tips them over. Consider Helen, an 82-year-old with a warm smile and a knack for knitting scarves for her grandkids. She's been on blood pressure meds for years, a ritual as steady as her morning oatmeal. But one evening, after a day wrestling with nagging back pain, she reached for an over-the-counter painkiller. A little relief, she thought, no harm done. The next morning, she woke feeling woozy, her legs unsteady beneath her. "I'll feel better after breakfast," she told herself, sipping orange juice. By midday, she was on the floor, her family rushing her to the ER. Unbeknownst to Helen, that pain reliever clashed with her blood thinner, sparking internal bleeding that crept silently through her system. What she saw as a simple fix became her undoing. Aging shifts the rules. The liver and kidneys slow, letting drugs linger longer, sometimes to toxic levels. Meds that sailed smoothly in your 50s hit harder now. Blood thinners, heart pills, pain relievers, and mixing them carelessly, even with herbal teas or supplements, can spell disaster. Prescription overload compounds the risk. Multiple doctors, multiple pills, and a maze of instructions, some with food, some without, some never together. Helen's mistake was innocent, but a double dose of a diabetes drug or a skipped heart pill could just as easily stop a heart cold. It's not malice, it's math. The body's delicate balance thrown off by a single misstep. Protecting yourself is simpler than you think. Keep a list, every pill, every supplement, and share it with every doctor you see. Use a pill box, set alarms, double-check doses. Before popping anything new, even aspirin, ask your pharmacist, "Does this play nice with what I'm on?" Helen could have called hers that night, turning a risky move into a safe one. It's not about mistrust, it's about mastery, keeping the reins on your health so you can keep knitting, laughing, living. Final thoughts. Taking control now that we've walked through these 5 silent threats: heart attacks that whisper, falls that shatter, clots that roam, infections that rage, and pills that betray. Pause and reflect. Which of these shadows might be lurking in your life or the life of someone you cherish? Aging doesn't announce its fragilities with a megaphone. It slips them into the cracks of your routine. waiting for you to look away. But here's the heartbeat of hope. You don't have to be a victim. These aren't invincible foes. They're risks you can outsmart with awareness and action. Maybe you felt that flicker of dizziness standing up, or shrugged off a swollen ankle after a long day. Perhaps you've skipped a pill or popped an extra, thinking it wouldn't matter. These moments feel small, but they're signals. Your body's quiet, pleas for attention. Stand up slowly, sip water, stretch your legs, check your meds. Watch for the subtle fatigue that clings, confusion that clouds, a leg that warms unexpectedly, an act when they whisper. These aren't burdens, they're gifts, chances to add years to your story, to keep chasing sunsets and grandkids' giggles. This isn't about fear, it's about power. You're not just dodging danger, you're building a life that lasts, rich with the things that light you up. So, what struck you today? Drop a comment below. Share one thing you learned, one step you'll take. Your voice fuels this journey, and I'd love to hear it. If this resonated, like, subscribe, share. Let's keep shining a light together. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next chapter.